Right, an update on housing issues. Right, so it came out this week that Serco have been trying to rent houses and drive rents up. So guess where Serco's headquarters is? It's in Hampshire, which would explain why rents in this area have gone up from £895 to sort of £1,200, then to £1,300 a month, now £1,400 a month. Now, DWP in their wisdom Rishi Sunak froze housing allowance, and that was undone by taking it back to the 30th percentile. So, 1/3 of the way up the list, that's what the rent they were paying. Somehow the valuation of rents was marked right down in the Southampton Broad Market area. So I've done a Freedom of Information request to the Valuation Office Agency, VOA, and I am going to that, waiting for that result. So Labour then came in, and despite their fairness policy, they have chosen to freeze rents again, at the same time that Serco are pumping them up and up and up in this area. So, I mean, I'm guessing it's Serco, because there's nothing to rent, nothing even coming on the market. There is nothing out there. So now that the Valuation Office Agency rate for a 3-bedroom house is £1,075, there is nothing to rent in the Southampton area. All the surrounding areas, Eastleigh, Bromsey, Chalmersford, Waterside, Hedge End, there is nothing to rent less than £1,400 a month. All right. So the 30th percentile is probably up at £1,500. If the truth be known, the genuine free market houses to rent. I don't understand how the Valuation Office Agency came up with that number of 1,075, because at exactly the same time that they should have, the September of 2023, when they were doing that, we were looking for a house to rent and there was nothing less than 1,300. So I've asked for their data set. I've asked if they've done a follow-up 1 year later. I've asked if they've got rolling data on the housing market. So the government freezing housing allowance, right? Now, bear in mind that the people who get that housing allowance, they're on universal credit, they can't find extra money because they're taxed, they have national insurance. Then when they take their wages home, they get 55% taper taken off of it. So they effectively, if you're on £12 an hour, you take home about £3.50 of that. I've got the exact number somewhere. The reality is on £3.50, you can't cover a £300 gap in your rent, and you without getting a lot of hours. And in this current situation, getting extra hours out of your employer is very, very hard. So I've asked the Department of Work and Pensions another Freedom of Information request whether they have done an impact assessment. They have to do an impact assessment when they impose things like benefit caps. So that one's in. I'm waiting to see what reply I get. So that's where we're moving on the housing. With the ongoing Ballymena fraud case, after 3 years of trying to get we managed to win at the tribunal on the Ballymena fraud case. But when we say win, DWP put up waved their little white flag, you see. And then they said, speak to your job coach, right? So they invented this £7,390 fake debt. Absolute fake. We told them within 6 days what was wrong. And we proved the case within 6 days. They spent 1 year before they did the mandatory reconsideration, but they only read half the very short email. There were 2 strong paragraphs in that, and they only read one of them. The reality is they got it so wrong. They took all of the person's money, and then they refunded the money that they took without any interest. Now, over the 2 years that they took that money, there was 10% and 10 and 5% inflation. They didn't put them back in the position. So this person got evicted, person missed the dad's funeral, etc. So rightfully, we're asking for the interest, we're asking for compensation. We spent about £2,000 in time and literary mileage doing this case. And we've asked for that money back, and we've asked for compensation for missing a funeral, and we've asked for compensation for missing family life. So that case, after waiting 3 years and getting no reply from them, we were pushed on to the independent case examiner, who again told us there was a 1 year waiting list. The statute of limitations ran out at around 3 years, so we've had to go to court. Court papers have been laid and they have been served on Caxton House. So the case, we're waiting for their reply. They have 3 options. They either pay up, they say we'll pay part of the claim, or they will fight the claim. Or the 4th option is that they don't reply at all. And then we apply to the county court for a judgment. So we await to see if they actually bother replying. That would be quite a good result, because we'll just submit a request to the court to make a judgment. If it goes to court, it'll be another year's delay. That's the state of play in Department of Work and Pensions, dealing with what should have been a very simple case, really, because we provided the paperwork 6 days after they invented the fake debt. As soon as we understood what was going on, 6 days later, we'd submitted a mandatory reconsideration, and they didn't read it. The God calls me God attitude in DWP is all benefit claimants are wrong. So anyway, the case, we shall see whether they want to fight it, because it'll be a fun court case. All the evidence is lined up, and you'll see. And the other thing is, we put in a claim for X amount of pounds, but the judge goes through a magic little book, and they'll decide what harm was caused. And in my opinion, there were 3 counts of severe impact, and the judge might decide that actually we've underestimated the claim. So we shall see. When the court looks at their magic little book of what the impact is of being prevented to go to a funeral, we'll see what number they come up with. Anyway, I'm Tony, Ant News, ongoing, just an update on the fight on the housing. And we just want a fairer society, quite frankly, which is not what's happening. I mean, it's, if the government want to save money, they've got to stop these court cases happening by doing their job right. Anyway, I'm Tony, Ant News. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Signing out.